Hey everyone, it's Brandon from the Young Investors Podcast. Myself and Hamish are excited to bring you your weekly rundown of the latest business and investing news from around the world. A quick reminder before we get started that any advice provided by myself is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's right for you. Brandon Kolk is authorized to provide general financial product advice in Australia and is authorized representative 1305795 of Guideway Financial Services Proprietary Limited, AFSL 420367. Please see the description box for my financial services guide. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future investment returns, but with that said, let's get into another episode of the Young Investors Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Young Investors Podcast. Hamish Hodder is about to go on holiday.
I am.
Woo! How exciting.
Yeah.
You excited, mate?
I am. Yeah, it's good. I feel like I spent so many late nights the last couple of weeks just trying to put together this last video that I wanted to put together. Which was a massive project, and I'm glad I got it out, and I'm glad the feedback on it's been really, really good. Not just in the numbers, but in the comments section. So it's been really positive.
Nice.
So
I still haven't watched it, but it looks like a banger.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun putting it together, and I think it came out quite good. I was quite happy with it. So yeah, I was glad to see the feedback on that's been good, and then
Did you get one scheduled?
No. So that was the thing. It was like my entire plan was like, my plan was always to have at least one video kind of scheduled, obviously, so that I'd have something to break up in between. And then I just started making and looking into this kind of 1980s kind of fraud stuff, and it just turned into a huge project that I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna put all my time into this, and yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting video anyway. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is. I just haven't seen it yet.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to going away.
And you'll be away until when?
I don't know exactly, but I think the first week of July. So yeah, unfortunately, I think I'll be a little bit off the grid. So I don't think we'll have a chance to do a podcast.
No, we're gonna put a pause on the podcast because I think that's important for you as well, because you want a break. That's the hard thing when it comes to content creation and these algorithms and YouTube and whatnot, is that they don't care about your holiday. Like if you're not posting, then you're not making money, then people are forgetting about you. So it traps you psychologically into always thinking, okay, on to the next one. And it makes it very, very hard to like fully switch off.
Yeah.
Because you're always like, oh, I could be working. I could be doing that next video. Even on the weekends, I'm thinking about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's good. I think it's a good strategy. It is unfortunate we won't be doing podcasts for a few weeks, and obviously the followers of your channel won't be seeing any videos. But I think it's kind of important just to like completely get away from it. Yeah. And, you know, YouTube will still be here when you get back. It's just annoying in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's also partly psychological, the idea that you have to keep posting. I mean, I haven't taken like an actual break from content, but I've taken long breaks from posting where I've just been kind of working on stuff and just kind of making videos where I haven't posted in a while. And I don't know, maybe it's just the style of videos I'm doing more now, where they're kind of more longer shelf life videos. I don't feel as much pressure to always have something out immediately.
That's good.
But it is, it's well overdue to take an actual break where I don't think about any work for a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to it.
So you're going to be sitting on a sailboat in Croatia, is that right?
Yeah, something like that, I think. I don't know actually fully exactly what's happening. I'm just kind of along for the ride. So I'll see. But I think I'll be off the grid a little bit. So yeah.
Nice. I'll have a really good trip, my friend. I hope you get some R&R.
Yeah.
All right. With that said, let's get into this podcast so that you can get out of here.
Yes. So what are we talking about today? We've got the Elon Trump fallout, which we spoke about like the beginnings of it last week, but it's obviously escalated in a meaningful way since then. What have we got? We've got an update around the US-China trade deal. We have US inflation. I have a quick update around the tariff court case that I'll talk about, and then some more tariff stuff. All kinds of tariff stuff at the moment this week.
It's kind of annoying. I was talking to Stephen, my editor, the other day, because I was in Canberra for a couple of days, and he was saying I was just asking him. I always like to ask my guys if they're enjoying work, what are they not liking about it, so that I don't want them burning out. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm mostly enjoying it. It's just that I've been editing a lot of content about tariffs."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, it's so true. Basically everything that's been happening this year has been revolving around Trump and his tariffs. There's not been too much crazy economic news that's not related to that.
No.
I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's been the year of the tariffs, I guess. Yeah.
Anyway, but let's talk about it in a second. I'll let you do the sponsor and let's get started.
With that said, today's episode is brought to you by Seeking Alpha, your one-stop shop for stock analysis, market data, and news. Access expert analysis and news from thousands of stocks. View buy, hold, and sell ratings from members, Wall Street analysts, and Seeking Alpha's own algorithm. Screen for stocks using a variety of fundamental and technical analysis metrics. Access 10 years of financial data and company filings, and manage your portfolio by tracking your investments with price alerts so you never miss a buying opportunity again. Click the link in the episode description or to try Seeking Alpha free for 7 days. And for a limited time, you can get $30 off your first year. So go check it out if you haven't already.
Nice. All right. What do we got? Should I do the Elon Trump fallout?
Yeah, we have to start with this because this is
oh my gosh. It's been, talk about a 180. Talk about a 180. They're best buds. Elon saying things like, "Oh, I love the president as much as any straight dude can." He's saying all sorts of stuff. They're doing interviews together. They're talking each other up. And yikes, that reversed course very, very quickly. Very quickly. However, Elon has come out and he's trying to make amends. He's trying to apologize. So it says here, a reunion of the world's richest man and its most powerful may not be imminent, but at least one of them has expressed his regrets as their relationship lies in ruins. Hamish, it lies in ruins. No. It does sound like a divorce. Yeah. Elon Musk said on X in the early hours of Wednesday that he regrets some of the barbs he posted as he and President Donald Trump traded insults on social media, saying they went too far. Oh. Musk's public acknowledgement came after Vice President J.D. Vance and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles spoke to him Friday and urged him to end the quarrel, which was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. At the height of their online fraud, sparked by landmark spending legislation Trump calls the Big Beautiful Bill, that's what we were talking about last week, Musk said the president wouldn't have won the election without him. He told everybody that Trump is on the Epstein list, and then he accused him of undermining the work of Doge in cutting billions from the federal budget. Yeah. Musk called the bill a disgusting abomination that would land the US in unsustainable debt. Yeah. So hours after Musk posted about regretting his comments, the New York Post published a taped interview with Trump in which the president said he had no hard feelings toward Musk. Asked whether he and Musk could reconcile, Trump said, "I guess I could." Wow. Quote, "I think he feels very badly that he said that, actually." That's such a Trump line. "I think he feels very badly that he said that, actually," said Trump in an interview which was taped on Monday before Musk's early morning posts. Hamish, what's your
I don't know.
What's your take on this?
I don't think I have any deep insights on this.
Part of me, okay, let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Part of me questions whether the beef was completely fabricated. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't know, but I don't.
Probably not,
I don't
because
think
he was
so.
actually
I
dissing
think
the bill.
I don't know if I have any deep kind of take on this. The only thing I saw was that it's interesting to see Elon kind of flipping now, because I think just a week before he kind of flipped, they decided to remove some like EV tax credit or something out of the bill, and so. It's just I think that was the only thing that I saw, which was it's kind of funny to see him essentially supporting this bill all the way up until that point, when effectively the essence of the bill, which is a very big spending bill that's going to increase the deficit, increase the national debt, that hasn't really changed, and so changing your opinion on it now is kind of interesting to see. But that was the only thing I really saw on this. I mean, I've seen people, speculate that, this isn't, a real beef and that sort of thing, but I don't know. I don't think I have any.
I hope it's real, because A, it's just better theatre, but also B, because if it's fabricated, I would definitely be questioning whether there's some sort of stock manipulation going on and insider trading.
Yeah.
If it was, because Tesla stock went down like 15% and then it's already bounced up 12%.
Wow.
So...
Yeah, who was buying?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we shall see. It says here, quote, "I was disappointed in him," Trump said in the interview. "But it is what it is. It happens. Things like this happen. I don't blame him for anything. I was a little disappointed." You can just imagine Trump saying this.
Yeah,
when you actually read it, it sounds like the stupidest quote ever.
So insane.
But as soon as you know that Trump said it, you can understand exactly how he would be saying that.
Yeah. Come on, Donald. Everybody knows being disappointed is worse than you being angry at him. Everybody knows. I'm just disappointed.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. When the Post asked Trump a follow-up question Wednesday about Musk's overnight post, the president told the outlet, quote, "I thought it was very nice that he did that." Trump on Saturday made clear his disappointment with his former ally, suggesting the US government could cut its lucrative ties with Musk's businesses and prompting the angry Tesla founder to highlight the president's one-time links with the late sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. Oh my gosh. It's sometimes when you just read things and you're like, how has this actually happened? I just got that. That was one of those moments where it's just like, how am I actually reading real news? How is this not Batuta or something,
Yeah, how's this not The Onion?
Yeah. Musk replied yes to an ex-user who suggested Trump should be impeached. In an interview Saturday, Trump told NBC News that there would be unspecified serious consequences for Musk were he to financially back any Democratic candidates who oppose the government's sweeping budget bill. The bill has passed the House, but it could be rejected in the Senate with just 4 Republican defections needed to defeat it. I think that's probably the more interesting thing to talk about.
Wow.
Is that it could actually be shot down quite... they only need 4. And there are a few, Republicans are the conservatives. They're more spend less. So I wouldn't put it past some of them who are really, conservative and really don't want to spend money that maybe they do go against. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge portion of the Republican Party that, you would kind of define them as like fiscally conservative. And so it wouldn't be surprising at all to see I think some Republicans dissent against this enormous spending bill. So that is it's quite a fine line, I guess, they've got to walk in order to try and get this passed. And maybe it might bounce back and forth between the houses for a while with amendments and changes, and but I guess it's still a while away from being law, which is probably a good thing, I think. If you're most people taking a look at the national debt clock,
$4 trillion to the national debt. Maybe just maybe. So there you go. Wow. So anyway, that's what I got. Hopefully they can sort out their beef. Hopefully the spending bill can be reined in. We shall see. All right, Hamish, over to you.
Yeah, I have just a couple of quick kind of tariff things. We spoke a little bit about the tariff court case last week, and I thought I'd just give this is a very, very just kind of brief update, but I thought maybe as we kind of follow this, I guess, over the remainder of the year, we'll kind of give tidbits here and there and keep people up to date with how it's progressing, as it looks like it'll probably head towards the Supreme Court, which is quite interesting, at least to me. But last week we spoke about the Court of International Trade, which had blocked most of Trump's recent tariff hikes, most notably the Liberation Day reciprocal tariffs, which were these kind of very widespread, far-reaching tariffs. And that court decided or argued and decided that Trump couldn't use the emergency economic power laws to pass those tariffs. So that happened a couple of weeks ago. Then the US Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit provided a temporary pause to that decision. That was also kind of last week. essentially allowing the tariffs to stay as law until the next stage of the court battle is heard in that appeals court. So just kind of putting a pause on the decision, allowing the tariffs to continue to run while things while things progress.
Okay.
But it was a temporary pause, and so the update this week is that same appeals court has now officially extended that temporary pause, and so the tariffs will stay in place. And they also set a date for when they will be beginning to hear arguments in the appeals court. And so the appeals court said it intends to hear arguments on July 31st, meaning that the tariffs will now stay in effect for at least the next 2 months.
Crazy.
And so yeah, there's still a little bit of time, I guess, a bit over a month before the next kind of court bit kind of continues. But the interesting bit is, of course, that the tariffs will stay in place, and that means that some of these 90-day paused tariffs, which are still paused, but some of those will potentially come into effect before this court battle finishes. And so we will, over the next month or so, there will be more tariff turbulence, I think, as different countries potentially scramble to, make deals with the US, and we might see Trump, remove or change some of these tariffs. But essentially, he's allowed to continue to enforce these reciprocal, widespread tariffs until, we'll start to see how it progresses on July 31st.
I'm not a huge fan. I feel like this sets a bit of an interesting precedent, though, because I think in life there are kind of two types of people. There are those who ask permission, and then there are those who ask forgiveness. There's like people that will ask before they do, and then there are people that will do, and then if something's wrong with it, they will say, oops, sorry, but they'll do it at a later date. Like, obviously, Donald Trump is someone who just does stuff and then deals with the consequences down the road.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't like the fact that the courts are just like, oh, we'll come back and see this later. But in the meantime, it's fine, because it sets a precedent that Donald Trump can actually just do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And he'll just do this, do that. He'll do whatever. And then, if down the road it turns out that, oops, actually he overreached there, then sure, they'll block it. But they've blocked it like 6 months later, where it's already had 6 months of effect. So I can't say I think the courts have to get better at just like acting faster. Like this is something that's come to our attention. We'll get together and decide. We'll deliberate, decide. Because otherwise, now, I mean, if Donald Trump says, well, if I'm not, let's say he's not allowed to impose these tariffs, right? That's the ultimate decision down the track. Well, even if that happens, he's like, well, I've been able to impose these for, what else can I do? What else can I do that, sure, I'm not allowed to do, but it'll be 6 months before I'm not allowed to do it? You know?
Yeah. And then there's definitely an argument you can make that some of the negative impacts potentially from this are not reversible. I mean, what if you're a business that just goes out of business because of the tariffs?
Next 6 months.
You can't really, it doesn't matter that the court then just says, oh, the tariffs were illegal. Like you're out of business. Like you can't undo that. And so there definitely is an argument.
Then you've got to sue the government.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously it puts the courts in a tricky position because they're deciding whether it is legal or not. So it's like, do you allow it to stay in place or not, or do you assume that it's going to get overturned? It's obviously always a tricky decision for the courts to make. But in this case, considering it looks very much likely that it's going to be found against Trump, because that's been the way that it's been decided in every court so far.
Right.
And every legal expert who's kind of basically looked at this, then it does seem kind of crazy to allow them to kind of stay in place. In terms of the appeals court, which, so this is kind of the next stage, all of the court's active judges will participate in the case. The losing party is expected to seek review at the Supreme Court. So whoever loses this, the next stage is trying to get the case heard at the Supreme Court. And considering it's such a meaningful decision in everything that's happening at the moment, it would be, I think, surprising if the Supreme Court doesn't take the case, because the Supreme Court has the power to just decide. They only take a few cases every year. And so they will decide whether or not this is one of the important cases that they want to take. But I think it would be shocking to see that they don't take it if it gets that far. Jeffrey Schwab, a lawyer from the Liberty Justice Center, the libertarian legal group representing the 5 businesses in this case, said they were disappointed with the appeals court order, but appreciated that the Federal Circuit agreed to hear the case on an expedited schedule. It's funny how, like, this is an expedited schedule.
Expedited. Oh, my God.
Yeah, we'll see you in 2 months.
Yeah.
They said, quote, it's important to note that every court to rule on its merits so far has found these tariffs unlawful, and we have faith that this court will likewise see what is plain as day, that the IEEPA, which is the Emergency Powers Law, does not allow for the president to impose whatever tax he wants whenever he wants. And so, yeah, that as I said, that is the most interesting element, is that the courts are saying the tariffs can stay in place until we decide. But every step of the way so far, it's been a unanimous decision by anybody deciding on this, that this is not going to go. And so you would think that it should have probably gone the other way, that they said, no, we actually will block the tariffs. We'll see how the court plays out. And if it turns out Trump actually wins this case, then we'll unblock them and, have at it. It seems odd to do it the other way, but that's the way they decided. And so, that's the update.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll talk about it when you get back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It'll be perfect. Well, not perfect timing, but it'll be the appeals court will be coming up as soon as I get back.
And do you want to roll into this next little bit that you've got to talk about? Still on the topic of tariffs.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be quite interesting. What you've got written down.
Yeah, this is just a bit of a. There's a fairly short kind of update that I saw just on the Wall Street Journal, but taking a look at how much is the US actually earning from these tariffs. There's all this talk about 10% here, 50% on steel and aluminium, everything. All of these different tariffs and whether they're legal or not, but. How are they actually earning anything?
How much dough is it bringing in?
So, basically, duties generated $37.8 billion in revenue for the US in the months of April and May combined, which comes after President Trump imposed new tariffs on steel, aluminium, cars, and goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. The tally, while a big jump, still falls short of the amount Trump said the US would be raking in. And so, specifically in April, they generated $15.6 billion in revenue. And then in May, there was a 42% increase. It jumped to $22.2 billion in revenue. And that $22.2 billion May revenue figure means that duties represented about 6% of the government's monthly income. And so, even with a very considerable increase in how much they're collecting from tariffs and duties, it's still obviously quite a small contributor to the government's overall revenue, and so. And
what did you say, Hamish? In May, it was $22.2 billion.
Yeah.
So let's annualize that. So we $266 billion, right, per year. Mm-hmm. If we just annualized it. Remember how Trump wanted to replace income taxes with tariffs?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
You remember that? Sources of revenue for the U.S. federal government, fiscal year to date 2025, individual income taxes $1.82 trillion.
Yeah. Wait, for the whole year, right? Yeah.
Since October.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Of last year. Yep. Since October of last year.
Yeah. So.
We got a ways to go before $266 billion somehow turns into $1.82 trillion.
Yeah.
But,
well, they better well bloody win that that appeals court.
Oh, they better. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
No. The article also said most of the duties collected in recent years have come from imported Chinese goods, but Chinese imports plunged this year as Trump imposed a series of escalating tariffs on Chinese goods. In April, the US imported about $24 billion in goods from China, the lowest figure since 2010, excluding the early months of the pandemic. And so Yeah, I mean, and then this is kind of something that was fairly expected. You know, if you put enormous tariffs on a country, then sure, you increase the percentage that you're taxing, but the dollar amount of imports is
less.
Going
the
to decline.
elasticity is there.
Yeah,
that's the one thing that I really get frustrated with. That Trump was talking about how, it's fine, we'll just put taxes on this and then we'll make enough money to replace income taxes. No, well, you're not factoring in the concept that, okay, if you make importers in the US pay an additional tariff to bring stuff in from China, they're not gonna do it. They're going to do it much less. As in, the higher the tariffs go, the higher the import tax, the less they're going to import, because it slowly becomes financial. It doesn't make sense financially. It's not viable financially.
Yeah.
But yeah, just people did not get that. But there you go. You blow my mind, Hamish. You raise import taxes from goods from China, and then the dollar amount of imports from China goes down.
Yep. And imports from Canada and Mexico also declined in April, as did the value of goods coming from almost every other country. So
what do you know?
So there you go.
Enjoy taxing. You could tax 100% of a dollar, but that's not going to get you very far.
That is true. Yeah, maybe that's all that. Yeah, that's all they have to do. Yeah.
So would you rather tax, 10% of $100 or 100% of $1?
Yeah. But Trump's making deals. Tell us about this US-China trade deal. We've got there's an update here, right?
We're all
safe.
Is he cutting deals. Art of the deal. Say it with me, everyone.
Art of the deal.
Yeah, no. There's honestly not that much that's concrete just yet. But yes, there is updates surrounding a US-China trade deal. The White House has said a trade deal with China is done and is awaiting the signatures of United States President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. President Donald Trump touted the agreement, which is still subject to final approvals on both sides, as a, quote, great deal that will be good for both countries. Quote, we have everything we need and we're going to do very well with it, and hopefully they are too, told Trump reporters prior to attending a performance on Wednesday evening at Washington's Kennedy Center. While not all the details are known, what has been revealed shows a deal that will probably hurt both economies and not solve some of the pressing issues, such as China's dominance on the rare earths supply chain. The United States will impose tariffs of 55% on imports from China, while China can levy 10% on its purchases from the United States. The 55% US tariff includes a 10% baseline tariff, which is currently in legal limbo, as we were talking about before, as well as a 25% from tariffs dating back to Trump's first term and 20% related to alleged fentanyl trafficking, the national emergency. Which is another contentious topic. This 55% tariff, if allowed, does represent a sharp increase in tariffs from the 25% on imports from China that was in place when Trump returned to the White House in late January. Tariffs at such a high level, this is quite interesting, tariffs at such a high level are likely high enough to cause trade to shrink while boosting inflation in the United States and lowering economic growth in both countries. If Beijing does keep 10% tariffs on imports of US energy commodities, these will be high enough to ensure that virtually no US crude oil, coal, or liquefied natural gas enters China, eliminating one of the few products that China is able to buy in large quantities from the United States.
Wow.
So they will not be sourcing their energy products from the US. If this 10% tariff holds, they'll be getting it from Russia. Oh dear. It's also questionable whether the tariffs will be enough to prompt more manufacturing in the United States, or whether they'll simply cause some production to shift from China to countries with lower import duties. And that's exactly what they saw in the first Trump term, is that they put the tariffs on China and everyone moved to India and Vietnam.
That's right, yeah.
They did not come back to America as they were hoping they would.
No.
The manufacturers did not. Probably. So that's kind of a broad stroke of where we're at with the trade deal. But the biggest part of it is definitely the rare earth story. So Trump did single out rare earths when talking up the trade deal, saying China will provide the metals that are found in a wide range of electronics and vehicles, quote, upfront.
Okay.
But the deal does little to solve the underlying problem with rare earths, magnets, and other refined metals such as lithium and cobalt, which are dominated by Chinese supply chains. At best, the agreement this week is a kick the can down the road type of deal, insofar as it prevents an immediate crisis in manufacturing in the United States, but it leaves open the possibility that Beijing will once again threaten supplies if there are problems between the two sides in the future. So
kick the can down the road. That doesn't sound like the US. I don't think. They don't do that with the debt ceiling or the deficit or they don't do that. I don't think. Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds
odd. That is a problem because with the rare earths, China controls 85% of global rare earths refining. So I've got a chart here, Hamish. China's grip on rare earths. And this kind of shows you exactly how dominant China is in the supply and the refining of rare earth elements. In terms of the reserves, they have 48% of the world's reserves. Mine production, they have 69%. But then this is the real problem. Refined production of all rare earths, they have 87%. Refined production of rare earth magnets, they have 91%. Wow. And refined production of heavy rare earths, they have 99%. So that is that is some dominance, and that's exactly what China's been wielding over the United States, being like, well, you want to make your battery, you want to make your solar panels, you want to make your wind turbines, your electric vehicles, your electronics. Well, guess what? You need us, and if we stop sending these over to you, you're stuffed.
Yeah, and it's only going to get more and more important. As a part of the economy and where we're going with all this technology over the next few decades. And so, it's a growing problem. It's not just something that exists today. It's something that is potentially going to be the focus point of conflicts between the US and China. For the next few decades.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And this kind of prompted a question. I was like, okay, if China has how has the US let China get to this position? Because to me, it just sounds like, okay, you'd see them getting dominant, and then you'd be like, okay, we need to up the ante and build this stuff ourselves. But they've clearly just let it go insofar as now China controls about 90% of the refined production of rare earths, which is crazy. So I was wondering, why? Why did they let that happen? It says here, rare earths aren't actually that rare, although finding economic deposits is challenging. It's the same for lithium, copper, cobalt, tungsten, and a range of other metals that many governments designate as critical. But developing supply chains for these minerals and refined metals outside of China is very costly. And so far, Western countries and companies have been unwilling to commit funds. Companies won't develop new mines and processing plants if they have to compete with China at market prices, as very few projects would make sense economically.
Right.
And then governments have been very sluggish in developing policies that would support new supply chains, such as guaranteeing offtake at prices high enough to justify investment, or by providing loans and other incentives. This means the world remains beholden to China for these metals, and is likely to remain so until governments start to act rather than just talk. So it is an economic problem, and the governments have not been willing to, offer contracts where they'll, buy the rare earths at a price where it makes it favorable for Western companies to set up all the infrastructure they need to then actually refine this stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, we just go, nah, we'll get it from China, and just fingers crossed.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got quite a moat on the rare earths market. It seems very challenging for anybody to just want to enter that market at all.
Yep, it's a tricky one. So who knows what happens? But it definitely stops the US from being able to go too hard on China, because literally China can put export controls on rare earths, and that is a very big problem for the United States.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we don't want to play out the story of Call of Duty. Which Call of Duty was it? Black Ops 1 or
Call of
something?
Duty Black Ops. I think it was Black Ops 2.
Oh, Black Ops 2.
Yeah.
World War 3 is like centered around rare earths.
Rare earths and China's control of them.
Yeah, we don't.
That's exactly
let's
right.
Let's not do that. Let's not.
Yeah.
I've already played that story. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's so true. But anyway, that's all I got, Hamish. That is all I've got.
Well, yeah, I thought we'd finish off. We'll finish off today's podcast with a take a look at the latest US inflation data, which has, of course, been kind of a talking point in the background, of course, of all of these tariffs, because one of the main economic consequences of tariffs is generally believed to be a considerable rise in prices as businesses just pass on their costs to their increased costs to consumers. And so everybody's kind of been watching what's been going on, and there really hasn't been any inflation impact up until this point in any of the releases that we've seen. And the same was absolutely true in the May release that just came out. Inflation was tame in May, defying fears that the impact of President Trump's tariffs would start to show a rise in prices. Consumer prices rose 0.1% in May over the previous month, less than economists anticipated. Year over year, inflation was 2.4%, which was in line with expectations and near a 4-year low recorded in April. So inflation broadly still isn't showing at all. In terms of some of the specific items that saw major month-over-month increases or month-over-month decreases, there were some items that you can tell are rising in relation to tariffs. So major appliances, for example, rose more than 4% in the month. So that's just kind of one example on the high end. Some of the other big increases were peanut butter, which was over 3%. Obviously, again, it's always hitting the breakfast. Always hitting the breakfast eaters,
hitting the breakfast aisle at the shops.
Bananas were up over 3%. Car and truck rentals 2.5%. Ice cream, not the ice cream. No. Over 2%.
The ice cream.
What else have we got? Coffee went up considerably. Audio equipment. Oh no, not the audio equipment. But the most important one that I noticed here, obviously I'm always looking out for the eggs. The eggs are the most important.
Yes.
The eggs is
what happened with the eggs, Hamish?
I don't care about anything else. I just care about the eggs. But the eggs actually declined.
Yes.
So eggs were down about almost 3% in the month over month. So it was a modest decrease, but a very welcomed one after some many increases in the price of eggs recently. So
I'm having eggs for breakfast.
yes, eggs are back on the menu, but peanut butter
back on the menu, boys.
Peanut butter not so much.
No,
there you go.
Get rid of the peanut butter.
But
I'll sell it.
No, but seriously, but all jokes aside, overall, prices aren't rising very fast. For months, businesses have warned that they will be raising prices in response to Trump's tariffs, and economists had expected tariff-related price hikes for items such as cars and clothing to show up in the May numbers of the Consumer Price Index. Wednesday's report doesn't provide definitive evidence this happened, with prices of cars and clothing declining rather than rising.
Hell yeah.
So the obvious question is why? Why have prices, particularly for certain items that were expected to rise, why are they not rising? One possible explanation is that demand just isn't strong enough for businesses to push price increases along to customers, leading to tariffs to be less inflationary than expected. And so, of course, it's just it's not just a given that businesses can just take their increased costs and give them to consumers. There has to be demand there. Consumers have to still want to and be willing to pay for things at those higher prices. And so that's kind of one theory. Another theory is that because businesses have loaded up on inventories ahead of anticipated tariff increases, it gives them a little bit of a kind of a wait time before they have to actually test these higher prices with consumers. And so because they've kind of, they've got this additional inventory, it might actually be the case that it's later in the year that we still, get to see these price increases. That businesses are kind of waiting as long as possible before having to kind of have to do that. A quote from Veronica Clark, a US economist at Citigroup, was, even when we're getting into months where we could see the tariff impact, it might be the case that demand is soft enough that we're not seeing huge price increases in prices because you can't really pass on that much as businesses might want. Right. Either way, she said, May is too early to tell. But if you're still not seeing much impact by late summer or early fall, that looks like a different story. And so it still seems to be, just a waiting game of, we don't really know. We're still waiting to see, which is generally the case with these sort of things. Trump, of course, spoke very positively about this on Truth Social in all caps, as he loves to do. Great numbers! ! Fed should lower 1 full point.
Yeah, classic. Which, 1 full basis point.
Yeah, just knock them. You know what? Just drop them to 0 again. Just drop them straight to 0. No, so Trump's obviously very stoked about the fact there's still no inflation. He wants the Fed to lower, and what he's talking about is that the Fed is going to be meeting next week to make a rate cut decision. I would probably put the odds of a 1% cut at 0%. I would happily take that. I would happily. But
no, I want Jerome to do a 1 basis point cut.
Oh, 1 basis point. Yeah, a single basis point.
You told me to do 1 point.
1 full point. Yeah, that's actually quite funny. 1 full basis point.
0.01% rate cut.
There you go, Trump. Yeah. No, so the Fed is likely to hold rates steady at its next meeting. They're very unlikely going to do a 100 basis point cut, but you never know. Who knows? Maybe Jerome will shock us all, but no, that's very unlikely to see. The interesting thing about next week's Fed meeting is we also get to see the economic projections, which they do every quarter. They don't do it every meeting; they just do it every quarter. So we'll get to see. How the Fed is kind of viewing all of the developments of the last 3 months in terms of tariffs and pauses and the court case and inflation not picking up and all of the different things that have kind of been playing out.
Yeah, all right. There we go. And that's it?
That's it.
That's it. Well, guys, guess what, Hamish?
Yep.
You're on holiday, my friend.
Woohoo! This is my last piece of work. Legitimately, the last thing I'm doing. I'm actually about to go pack, and then I'm off.
Nice. Well, dude, have a really, really good time.
Thank you.
I hope the trip is awesome. I've a couple of my mates have gone to Croatia, and they say it's absolutely phenomenal. So I hope you have a really good time.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks. It looks beautiful over there. So yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah.
Yep, send me a postcard.
Yeah, I'll send you.
Do postcards exist? Do postcards even exist anymore?
Yeah,
you reckon?
I think so. Yeah, I'll send you a postcard.
I haven't seen one. Oh, how lovely! And it'll arrive just in time for the next podcast, and I'll read it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, don't waste your time sending me a podcast. Enjoy your trip. All right, guys, we're going to bounce out of here. Thanks, as always, for listening. And with that said, we'll see you in a fair few weeks.
Yep,
we'll see.
Few weeks.
I'm not exactly sure when we're going to be back. I'm not sure. Maybe in July sometime.
Yep, July sometime.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll say that.
July sometime.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys then.
See you guys.